Hey, welcome to my channel. Today's painting is a really fun one. So I really wanted to share a much longer video of the process and how I painted it. My desk is not on fire. This is a cup of tea. I'm in my art room, but it's more like a dumping ground for all my art materials and anything that doesn't fit in the rest of my flat. At the moment I've just painted the walls green, and that's about as art room as it gets to go with like my brand colours. But the vision is still yet to appear. But we have a desk. So I hope you enjoy these few minutes that are a kind of edited, shortened version of the painting, which I think it took maybe 2-3 hours to do something like that. It's not very big. I won't reveal it just yet. I'm hoping to get into a routine with these videos and release them on Sundays monthly, if not weekly. So please subscribe and keep a lookout for me. This is my new Daniel Smith palette that I got for Christmas, and it is beautiful. It's got granulating watercolours in it, which I don't know the science behind it, but essentially means that there's pigments within the colour that split once they're wet, so you get kind of a mottled blend of different colours. So like the green, for example, will have maybe brown in it, or the blue will have a kind of green that comes through, or vice versa. So you get like a very unique effect that's quite specific to watercolours that I don't think you really get in any other medium. I love to paint flowers and plants and nature, so this palette with a few greens and blues in is perfect for me and works beautifully. My reference today is a photo I took a few years ago, but in sort of early springtime, where the first few flowers had started to come through, but it had also rained, so the leaves were wet, there were droplets kind of on the petals, and I thought it was the perfect subject for watercolour. I've been looking back at some of my work recently, a similar style of close-up studies of flowers and leaves and fauna, and they've not really been as detailed as I'd like, especially as I use quite a lot of white space in my work. Sometimes I think it can end up looking quite illustrative and unfinished. So in this painting I really want to focus on the details and the realism where I can, and I think that having the water droplets and the water reflections and that kind of texture will be an interesting challenge. So what I'm doing here is blocking out some of the big shapes and laying down a kind of first layer of light wash colour, which I then intend to go over with a kind of fine detail in darker and maybe different shades. But I'm loving these wavy, uneven edges and shapes that kind of fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. You'll notice I'm using really small brushes for this painting, and it's so helpful when you're doing photorealistic or realistic work to have these tiny fine brushes for detail. So you may be looking at this also and thinking, how do I know where to put the detail? And I think one thing I keep in mind is that the eye is attracted to areas of contrast. So if you've got bright white paper against a very dark shade, that's naturally where your eye is drawn to. So I try and create a shape or a flow, or just be mindful of where those areas of high contrast are, so that you can make sure your eye is going to flow around the painting and have areas to settle and not settle. And that's why I love the unfinished look so much, because it just allows your eye to focus on the areas that you want them to focus on, and for me cuts out the noise. So I've gone in with a much darker green here to try and add some depth and shadows to the leaves. I think if they're all the same sort of colour and texture, it ends up all blurring into one. As I say, that you don't get that contrast where the eye is like supposed to look. Here I'm using a bit of the wet and wet technique, where you create a wash or a light bit of colour, even water, and then you go back in with more paint and allow that pigment to kind of bleed into where the wet paper is, and you get a very soft blended effect. So then naturally I got bored of some of the leaves, so I wanted to add another flower into the composition. And I really wanted to make it look like the petals were wet, like with droplets on. This is quite a difficult thing to do with a white flower, because you have to be so careful that the shadows work. So what I've done here is actually use a purple, very, very light sort of purple colour mixed in with a bit of the yellow to create a shadow tone. I think it works. It's not too dark and definitely gives it a bit of depth, which is what I was going for. And rather than trying to outline the petals using that shadow colour, I've used the green of the leaves behind it to kind of add some context and add the petal shape in, if you like. I think sometimes it's often the white space in what you don't say that helps you say what you want to say. You don't have to paint in every edge, every detail, because I don't think that's how we see things. Like when you are looking at something with your eyes, you don't see everything in photographic detail. You can't zoom in. You know, when you're looking at something, you're focusing on a certain point. So I try to create that effect with my paintings where not everything is hyper detailed, and then you've got kind of focus areas for your eye to sit and look at. And hopefully it feels quite like a human way of looking at something. I think in the age of cameras and AI, there's still definitely a place for painting. And for that reason, I'd never want my paintings to look exactly like a photo, even if I could do that. Anyway, I'm wombling. But here I'm trying to incorporate some of that purple tone from the petals into the rest of the painting, so some of the stems, some of the shadows with the leaves as well, just kind of adding hints of this purple tone or reddish tone to bring some sort of cohesion. I think otherwise those lavender tones might be a bit out of sync with the rest of the painting. And it's at this point I'm wondering where to finish. I kind of want to make it look like the painting is growing across the page, so it's not all going to be filled in. So hopefully this has given you some idea into my thought process, if that was interesting. So this is the final piece. It's a dinky little painting, but I kind of love it. The colours and the detail, really cool. So I hope you enjoyed it.